Every morning, Rachel Watson takes the same train. It's a routine she knows by heart. The train leaves London and moves slowly through the quiet suburbs, passing rows of houses that look peaceful from the outside. From her seat by the window, Rachel watches these homes carefully. For most passengers, the houses are just a blur outside the glass. But for Rachel, they are stories, lives, possibilities. There is one house she always looks for, a small but beautiful house near the railway line with a terrace that faces the tracks. A couple lives there. Rachel sees them often when the train slows down. Sometimes they are drinking coffee outside. Sometimes they are laughing together. Sometimes they stand close, holding each other as if the world belongs only to them. Rachel doesn't know their real names, but in her mind she calls them Jess and Jason. To her, they are the perfect couple, the kind of couple she once dreamed of being part of. Because Rachel's own life didn't turn out that way. Not long ago, Rachel had everything she thought she wanted: a house, a husband, a future.
Her husband's name was Tom. They lived together in a small house in the suburbs, not far from the railway line Rachel travels past every day. But that life is gone now. Tom left her, and the house that once belonged to Rachel is no longer hers. Now Tom lives there with another woman. Her name is Anna, and together they have a baby. Every day when the train slows near the tracks, Rachel can see that house, her old house. Sometimes she catches a glimpse of Anna moving around inside. Sometimes she sees the baby, and every time it feels like reopening an old wound. Rachel's life fell apart after the divorce. She began drinking heavily. At first, it was just to cope with the pain, but slowly, alcohol became something else, an escape, a way to forget. Soon, drinking wasn't just something she did at night. It followed her into the mornings and the afternoons. Eventually, Rachel lost her job, but she never told anyone. Instead, she keeps pretending that everything is normal. Every morning, she leaves the apartment she shares with her friend Kathy. She gets on the train like she always did when she still had a job in London. But instead of going to work, Rachel spends the day wandering around the city. Sometimes she sits in cafes. Sometimes she walks through parks. And sometimes she drinks. They represent everything Rachel wishes she could have again. But one morning, something changes. The train slows down as usual near their house. Rachel looks out the window, expecting to see the couple together. Instead, she sees Jess standing on the terrace. But she isn't alone. There's another man with her, and they are kissing. Rachel stares, shocked. The moment lasts only seconds before the train begins moving again. But the image stays burned in her mind. The perfect life she imagined suddenly feels like a lie, and Rachel can't stop thinking about it. For the rest of the day, the scene plays again and again in her head. Why would Jess betray Jason? What kind of relationship did they really have? Rachel doesn't know why it bothers her so much. After all, these people are strangers. But the truth is, she had built an entire story around them, and now that story is starting to fall apart. A few days later, something even stranger happens. Rachel learns that the woman she calls Jess has disappeared. Her real name is Megan Hipwell.
And suddenly, her disappearance becomes the center of a growing investigation. The police begin asking questions. Neighbors talk. Rumors spread. No one knows what happened to Megan. And then Rachel realizes something unsettling. She might have been one of the last people to see Megan before she vanished. But there's a problem. Rachel had been drinking heavily the night Megan disappeared, so heavily that parts of that night are missing from her memory. When she tries to remember what happened, she sees flashes, broken pieces of images, a dark road, a man shouting, fear, but nothing connects clearly. And the more Rachel thinks about it, the more frightened she becomes. Because what if she saw something important? Or worse, what if she was involved somehow? Now, Rachel finds herself drawn deeper into the mystery. She begins searching for answers about Megan, about the people around her, and about the truth hidden in the memories she cannot fully recall. But the closer Rachel gets to the truth, the more dangerous everything becomes. Because in this quiet neighborhood, nothing is as perfect as it seems, and someone is hiding a secret that could destroy everything.
Rachel can't stop thinking about Megan. The image of her on the terrace, the kiss with the unknown man. It all feels important now. When Rachel hears on the news that Megan Hipwell has gone missing, something inside her shifts. This isn't just a story anymore. This is real. And somehow, Rachel feels connected to it. Rachel begins searching for information. She reads every article, watches every update, listens carefully to what people are saying. Megan is described as beautiful, mysterious, but troubled. Her husband, Scott Hipwell, tells the police that she never came home. He looks desperate, broken. But Rachel notices something else in his interviews: anger. The more Rachel learns, the more obsessed she becomes. She convinces herself that she can help. After all, she saw something, even if it was just for a moment, even if she can't fully trust her own memory.
But Rachel is hiding something. The night Megan disappeared, Rachel was drinking again, heavily. And when Rachel drinks, something happens. She forgets. Entire hours disappear. Memories become blurred, distorted, or completely gone. Rachel tries to remember that night. She closes her eyes, pushes herself, and slowly, fragments start to appear. She remembers getting off the train, walking, feeling angry. Then, darkness. When she looks at herself in the mirror the next morning, she notices something strange. There's blood. Not much, but enough to make her heart race. She doesn't know where it came from. She doesn't remember getting hurt. Now a terrifying thought begins to grow in her mind. What if she was there that night? What if she saw something? Or worse, what if she did something? Rachel knows she needs answers, so she does something risky. She decides to find Scott, Megan's husband. When Rachel meets him, she pretends to be someone else, someone who knew Megan, someone who might have information. Scott listens carefully. At first, he's cautious, but Rachel says just enough to make him trust her, or at least to make him curious. And slowly, Scott begins to open up. He tells Rachel that Megan wasn't perfect, that she had secrets, that she wasn't always faithful, and that their relationship wasn't as happy as it seemed.
Rachel listens carefully, because this changes everything. The perfect couple she imagined never existed. But then Scott asks Rachel a question, something simple but dangerous. How did you know Megan? Rachel hesitates. For a moment, she almost tells the truth, but she stops herself. Because the truth is, she didn't know Megan at all. But then Scott asks Rachel a question, something simple but dangerous. How did you know Megan? Rachel hesitates. For a moment, she almost tells the truth, but she stops herself. Because the truth is, she didn't know Megan at all. And yet, Rachel feels closer to this mystery than anyone else. Closer than the police. Closer than Scott. Because somewhere inside her broken memory, The answer is already there. She just has to find it.
Rachel's obsession grows stronger. Every day she gets closer to the truth, but every step forward only leads to more questions. Meanwhile, another story unfolds. Megan's life before she disappeared, and it's far more complicated than anyone expected. Megan wasn't just a wife. She had secrets, dark ones. She worked as a therapist's assistant, and she had been seeing a doctor, Dr. Kamal Abdik. At first, it was just therapy, a place where Megan could talk about her past, her fears, her regrets. But something changed. Something crossed a line. Rachel doesn't know all of this yet, but she feels it. She senses that Megan was hiding something, and that whatever happened, it wasn't random. Back in Rachel's life, things are getting worse. Her drinking continues. Her memory becomes even more unreliable, and her lies are starting to catch up with her. Her friend Kathy begins to suspect something. Rachel isn't going to work. She's always tired, always distant, always hiding something. But Rachel refuses to admit the truth, because if she does, everything will collapse. And then something unexpected happens. Rachel runs into Anna, Tom's new wife. Anna recognizes her immediately. There's tension, anger, fear. Rachel had always blamed Anna for destroying her life. But now, face to face, Rachel realizes something else. Anna is afraid of her. And maybe she has a reason to be, because Rachel starts to remember more. Fragments, voices, a man shouting, a woman crying, and then something violent. The memory is still incomplete, but one thing is clear. That night was not normal, and Rachel was there. The investigation intensifies. The police begin questioning everyone connected to Megan, Scott, neighbors, friends, and eventually, Rachel. Rachel is terrified. She doesn't trust her own memory. She doesn't know what she might say or what she might reveal. But she also feels something else, a strange determination. Because for the first time in a long time, Rachel has a purpose. She begins to dig deeper. She visits Megan's neighborhood, watches, listens, searches for anything that feels familiar. And then, another piece of memory returns. She remembers a man standing near Megan, arguing, angry. And suddenly, everything shifts. Rachel realizes something important. Megan wasn't just a victim. She was involved in something dangerous, something hidden. And that man might be the key. Meanwhile, Scott becomes more unstable. His grief turns into obsession. He wants answers, and he begins to suspect everyone, even Rachel. Because Rachel knows too much, and she can't explain how. The tension builds, the truth gets closer, and Rachel is caught in the middle of it all. But the biggest revelation is still coming, because the truth about Megan is only part of the story. The real danger is much closer than Rachel realizes. Rachel continues searching for the truth about Megan. The more she investigates, the more disturbing the story becomes. At first, Megan seemed like the perfect wife, beautiful, confident, living a peaceful suburban life. But that image begins to crack. Through conversations with Scott and clues she discovers herself, Rachel learns that Megan had been hiding a secret, a very dangerous one. Megan had been having an affair, and the man involved was someone completely unexpected. Her therapist, Dr. Kamal Abdik. Rachel struggles to understand how this could have happened. A therapist is supposed to help people heal, but Megan had become emotionally attached to him. During their therapy sessions, she began revealing painful parts of her past, her loneliness, her regrets, her desire to escape the life she felt trapped in.
Over time, the relationship between patient and doctor crossed a line, and what began as therapy slowly turned into something much more personal, something forbidden, something dangerous. But Rachel senses that even this isn't the whole story. Because Megan wasn't just unhappy, she was hiding something even deeper, a secret she hadn't told anyone, not even Scott. Then another shocking detail emerges. Megan was pregnant, and she wasn't sure who the father was. This revelation changes everything. If Scott discovered the pregnancy, their marriage could collapse. If the therapist was involved, his career would be destroyed. And suddenly, Megan's disappearance begins to look less like an accident and more like something planned. Rachel realizes that Megan had been surrounded by people with reasons to lie, people with reasons to protect themselves, and maybe reasons to kill. Rachel's memories slowly begin returning, not clearly, not all at once, but in fragments, broken images, sounds, moments. She remembers walking near Megan's house that night. She remembers shouting. She remembers a man, and then fear. The police continue their investigation. Scott becomes more desperate every day. At times, he seems like a grieving husband, but at other moments, something darker appears: anger, possession, control. Rachel begins to suspect that Scott might not have been the loving husband everyone believed. Megan had once told her therapist that Scott could be controlling, that he watched her, that he needed to know where she was at all times. But even as Rachel considers this possibility, another disturbing truth begins to surface. The story Rachel believed about her own past might not be completely true. For years, she believed that her marriage with Tom ended because she drank too much, because she became unstable, because she ruined everything. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if someone had been manipulating her memories? Rachel begins questioning everything she thought she knew, and slowly, a terrifying realization begins forming in her mind. The person responsible for Megan's disappearance might be someone much closer than she ever imagined. The final pieces of the puzzle fall into place. Rachel finally remembers the night Megan disappeared. She remembers seeing Megan with a man near the railway tracks. At first, she thought the man was a stranger, but now the memory becomes clearer. The man wasn't a stranger at all. It was Tom, her ex-husband. For years, she believed Tom was the victim of her drinking, the patient husband who tried to help her, the man who had been forced to leave because she couldn't control herself. But that version of the story was never completely true. Tom had lied, again and again. He had manipulated Rachel's memories during her drunken blackouts. He convinced her that events happened in ways they never did. He turned her into the villain of her own life. And now, Rachel understands something horrifying. Tom had also been involved with Megan, another secret affair. When Megan told him she was pregnant, everything changed. Tom panicked. A baby would expose everything: his marriage, his lies, his secrets.
And so, on the night Megan disappeared, Tom met her near the railway tracks. What started as an argument quickly became violent, and in a moment of rage, Tom killed her. Rachel remembers seeing part of the confrontation, but she was drunk, confused, and Tom used that weakness to hide the truth, just like he had done so many times before. Now, Rachel understands. The real villain was never herself. It was Tom. Rachel realizes she is in terrible danger, because if she knows the truth, Tom will eventually realize it too.
and Tom cannot allow that. Rachel goes to Anna's house, the house that used to be hers. She tries to warn Anna about Tom. At first, Anna refuses to believe her. After everything that happened in the past, Rachel seems like the least trustworthy person in the world. But Rachel keeps talking. She reveals Tom's lies, his affairs, his manipulation. Slowly, Anna begins to see the truth. Pieces of Tom's behavior suddenly make sense. His anger, his secrets, the way he controlled the story of Rachel's past. And then Tom arrives. He quickly realizes what Rachel has figured out. The calm mask he always wears disappears. For the first time, Anna sees the real Tom. Dangerous, cornered, desperate.
A violent confrontation begins. Tom tries to silence Rachel forever. But this time, Rachel is no longer the helpless woman he once controlled. She fights back. Anna fights too, and together they manage to stop him. In the end, Tom's crimes are exposed. The truth about Megan's murder is finally revealed, and Rachel's long nightmare begins to end. For the first time in years, Rachel sees her life clearly. She realizes she was never the monster Tom convinced her she was. She was simply someone who had been manipulated and broken by grief. The train still passes the same houses every day, but Rachel is no longer watching other people's lives from the window. Now she is finally ready to rebuild her own.